So you ran propaganda for Israel, is my understanding, right?
Yeah, I mean that's definitely a way of saying it. That's how I would describe it. Yeah, I was sort of acting as a useful idiot. So I'm an American, and I got hired. I have a background in international affairs. My father was a pastor. To just make a long story short, I think that that's a lot of the reason I got hired for this job, which was the title was strategic outreach director. It really should have been called Christian Zionism and interfaith director. So it was my job from November of 2016 until May of this year to kind of foster a certain flavor of religious fanaticism, mostly for evangelicals, to get them to have a unquestioned amount of support for the Israeli government and to organize a lot of outreach, communications, prayer campaigns, events, delegations to Israel, delegations from Israel to come talk to people. So all sorts of things for 8.5 years or so. And needless to say, once the war started, that kind of process really intensified and got a lot crazier. And largely as a and I was a pretty liberal Christian before this. So I was not in the like conservative evangelical fundamentalist world. And around 2020, like literally like January of 2020, I guess stopped believing in God or became an atheist, however you want to say it. And so then was pretending to be a liberal Christian, pretending to be a conservative Christian for like 40 hours a week at work while I was doing this job, which is pretty pretty I mean, I don't know, traumatizing is probably too loaded of a weird of a word
It's
to
certainly
use, but
psychologically
pretty messed up.
damaging.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it was certainly an experience. And yeah, also just even before becoming an atheist, just felt really kind of gross doing that job. And then yeah, once the war started, it was even more so because it was there was something just fundamentally deceitful about it, manipulative. And yeah, and you go back and forth with it because there's times when you would just like kind of lean in and see, oh, like I'm just gonna see how far I can push into this absurdity, almost to entertain yourself. This is before the war. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, because like I would be organizing interfaith dinners sometimes, like, and these actually we did like an interfaith Sukkot dinner every year. So just for example, like that one actually got like recognized by the municipal government of Houston. That's where the consulate is here. So by the way, so we covered Texas, New Mexico, Louisiana, Arkansas, Oklahoma, and then for a while Kansas as well. And then they eventually moved that to a different consulate. But yeah, plenty of tech connections with megachurch pastors all over the states. And there was times when I had conservative pastors sitting at tables with like moms and gay rabbis, and everyone is just kind of vibing on this, and it's really just a damage control or kind of serve an agenda that many would disagree with if they actually were kind of consciously thinking about it. But I feel like everyone was kind of just high on this idea of this kumbaya spirit, or they were just so eager to do what the
Yeah.
Israeli
So
conflict was saying to do. So
the interfaith dinners and dialogues. This is between Muslims, Christians, Jews,
Hindus, Jains, Sikhs,
and it
uh,
was it was
Baha'i faith. Like there was 10 or 11 faiths, not denominations, but faiths we had there. We had Catholics, Protestants, uh, Mormons. Like I really just got as many people as I could possibly get to come. Zoroastrians. I mean,
yeah, yeah, yeah. And so it was. And what was the theme of these dinners? It was, hey, we're just going to come and have an interfaith dialogue, or was this about Israel, or how did like Israel factor into that?
yeah, so that's where it kind of gets murky and complicated. So we did a few of these every one of them every year was like interfaith Sukkot dinners. So it's for the holiday of Sukkot. So we would partner with a synagogue, and I would, you know, just as an aside here, doing catering for people with that many like dietary specific things is already just a complete nightmare. But yeah, so ostensibly it was to uh, kind of just celebrate this holiday, invite people from all different traditions to come and and learn about it and we picked that holiday specifically because in like the Jewish tradition, that's one where you erect the sukkah, which is kind of like a tent, and everyone gets in together and shares a meal. So it's already kind of a more outward focused tradition anyway. And then it's cementing ties between us and the Jewish community in America because we're partnering with a specific synagogue every time we're doing it. Uh, ADL was always involved. They literally would just like throw themselves at almost any event we would put on and ask them to be a part of. They were constantly wanting to. And then it's like the hardest part of the outreach was definitely to the Muslim American community. That's probably not surprising at all. I think a lot of more progressive oriented Christians would get involved because of sensitivity around anti-Semitism or being perceived as being anti-Semitic. So that's why they would want to get involved. And but yeah, so like two of the biggest ways I found into the Muslim world and like Dallas and Houston and everything was some of the Ismailis were always eager to talk. But then there's the Ahmadiyya Muslim community. I don't know if you're familiar with that branch. So it starts in Pakistan. They're actually fairly oppressed there. I would, like in a nutshell, I would kind of say they are the Mormons of Islam. So, and they think that there's this kind of second prophet who came, I think it's in like the 18th century or 19th century, who came out. So it's already very heretical and like any kind of mainstream or fundamentalist Islamic circles. And they think that this figure continuously like dies and is reincarnated, almost like the Dalai Lama. So they're not allowed, they're oppressed in Pakistan. They're not allowed to call their mosques mosques. One of their biggest mosques is actually in Israel. So they actually have a decent relationship uh, with, I guess, Israel, you could say. And so that was like kind of where I first started getting my foot in the door. And then another offshoot of Islam like I targeted is actually it's like the Ordin Muhammad. It's like the WAD Muhammad community, and it is actually an offshoot of Nation of Islam, which I know sounds bizarre. So this guy who was their founder was like an understudy of Elijah Muhammad and then came to reject a bunch of his, which I mean, Nation of Islam is like an anti-Semitic crackpot cult, like that. So
Yeah, and
these
Elijah
people,
Muhammad was like an exposed fraud, like a thousand
yeah,
percent.
yeah, yeah. So these people came to like splinter off from that, keeping some of the lessons, but rejecting all the anti-Semitic craziness, awful stuff and almost kind of overcorrected. So they would also come to like all sorts of stuff we did. And then it's like I actually got first connected to more of like Mormon leaders through those two groups, which was kind of odd. It seems like in most like interfaith spaces and most major cities, it's so like with most like fundamentalist Christians, like interfaith relations kind of usually ends between like Baptists and Methodists. Maybe they'll go on to Jewish folks, but like, yeah, it's so in most interfaith spaces, it's really progressive Christians, and then it's other minority faiths who run the gamut from being super progressive to super fundamentalist, with like a few exceptions, like one of which, Bob Roberts. I don't know if you've ever heard of him. He's super active in the interfaith scene in Dallas, but he's a like very conservative Christian. He tells like the people that he's in dialogue with all the time, like, I do think you are going to hell, but I think we should talk and everything. So it really interesting figure, but yeah, that just kind of give you a little bit
Sure.
of a understanding of where we're coming from with all this.
And all
Oh,
of
but
this,
by the way, like all the outreach to the Muslim community was a completely different face publicly than behind the scenes with like all sorts of stuff I was asking. I wrote a whole article about this. Like there was instances where I was told like if uh some of these the Muslim leaders were gonna have a meeting in the consulate, they would have to be strip searched. Um, so they wanted me to lie about where this one meeting that we were proposed was going to take place, and I ended up not doing that. But we had to cancel that meeting anyway. There was like concern about the valet company that we were using for one of these events because it was an Arab-owned company, and presumably the people were, even though we had used them for like years and years and years, and the security chief came up and told me, "Oh yeah, no, we can't use them." But yeah, I mean, there was just all sorts of
Interesting.
stuff like this. The entire and like I don't want to say everyone was like this because there was some people who were completely nice and reasonable, decent people, and then there were other people who were horrible that I worked with. But in working there over the course of 8.5 years, I easily met over 100 Israelis. I met one Arab Israeli, like one Muslim Israeli, the entire time, even though they make a
Hmm.
fifth of the population of Israel. And despite working there for 8.5 years and being super connected and in this world for this long time, where I'm surrounded by all this chaos, especially when the war started, and I always felt like I was in the middle of this whirlwind, pretending to be religious, putting out this religious propaganda to get support for the war and everything. I still have never actually stepped foot in Israel. I was I in my when I was getting my master's in international relations, I didn't even focus on the Middle East. I focused on South Asia and Southeast Asia. I was hired because I speak Christianese, not because I speak
Christianese.
Hebrew.
Yep. 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 So, what is the craziest propagandistic thing that you did or saw while working at the Israeli consulate?
Oh, that would be hard to limit. I definitely think one of the worst ones was we did an event called, this was during COVID. So, like any other organization, we have to cancel all these physical events and figure out how to do exclusively digital events for a while. So we did an event called Together for the Jordan Valley. And we did this. This was in the second consul general I served under, whose name was Gilad Katz. Uh, he was a political appointee. He was not a career diplomat. It showed like he was a close associate of Netanyahu. They're personal friends. He was Orthodox anyway. So there was and it there was a Palestinian Authority group in the West Bank wanted to build a highway along some hillside. I don't really know exactly specifically where it was, but there was people who believed that this was a holy site where there was an altar for Joshua that may or may not have been, like, it was all pretty murky. And so we put together an event where a member of the Knesset was speaking there, and then we partnered directly with a man named Moti Isaac, who heads the Holy Land Redemption Fund. And this group is a fanatical settler organization, and they solicit money to buy land in the West Bank and the Jordan Valley, often under like pretty dubious means, connected to a lot of like potentially even violent folks, and so that they can move settlers in there and change kind of facts on the ground. So we worked with him. It was also another partner was the U.S. Pastors Council and Houston Area Pastors Council. That organization was founded by a man named David Welch, who's an American. He passed away this summer, but he put together like a pan-racial group of conservative pastors to fight for a lot of kind of, I would describe as like Christian dominionism things. They put together all these pastors luncheons. We would send the CG to attend a bunch of these, or I would go just to kind of get my information out there, and they welcomed this. I mean, we were partnered with them on quite a few things. And so I put Moti Isak in contact with him. Then we did this whole event. I ended up the CG then asked me, meeting with Moti multiple times. Like I still have his number in my phone and everything, to put him into contact with other megachurch pastors to see if they can get some donations to be sent to the Holy Land Redemption Fund. So I put him in contact with, like, Willie Davis was one. He's now a member of the Houston City Council. Another one was Robert Morris of in Dallas, who, if you don't know, he was recently fired from the church because of a pedophilia scandal.
I vaguely recall
Yeah,
Robert
so
Morris.
he was a pastor of Gateway Church in
Gateway.
DFW, one of the biggest churches in our whole region, thousands and thousands of members. They have a whole gateway center for Israel that runs like a Messianic Christian or Messianic Jewish service at the church every Sunday. They have a liaison who lives in Israel. They had a channel that was trying to proselytize to Israeli Jews in Israel at the time. So really weird bedfellow. And Moti told me that uh, that with yeah, Robert Morris and also Kenneth Copeland. I put him in contact with, sorry, my dog barked, with both of those people were became huge funders in this whole operation. So that was probably the most crazy one.
So
I mean, but
getting
like
all,
every week it was something weird. We were always connected to like I put a whole like thing together marking like I think it was the 15th or 20th, I don't remember exactly, anniversary of diplomatic relations between the Vatican and Israel. Like, so I've met with Cardinal Donardo multiple times, have his number in my phone, like, um, met Joel Osteen before. He's probably the least bad of all the televangelists. Like,
that's funny you
we
say that.
tried to cultivate that relationship so much, and they really weren't very interested because he's just more of a vibes guy. Anyways, he tries to stay out of politics, and like so he actually has
That's funny.
the most unique style. I mean, say what you will about the prosperity gospel, and there's a lot to say, but I think he's relatively harmless compared to Robert Jeffress or someone like that, who we also had a relationship with at First Baptist Dallas.
So you basically work to funnel as much money as possible from the megachurch type pastors like Kenneth Copeland and all them to like subtler groups, basically.
On that one event, I mean, a lot of what we were doing was, again, it is just kind of like a vibes thing. Like we're doing these little pep rallies for Israel. So like every year you've probably seen, John Hagee, he runs Christians United for Israel. It's the biggest
Yep. Oh, that one.
like
Yep.
Christian Zionist organization. He leads Cornerstone Church in San Antonio. Every single year, uh, you know, there would be an event that they did called the Night to Honor Israel. A lot of the events we did were kind of modeled on that and just taking that model and doing it at the different church. But anyway, like the CG would always give remarks at that event, and I wrote those remarks like every year. So I was writing down things that I didn't even believe, that I thought was crazy, that I thought was making all the situation worse, making peace less likely, creating a set of facts on the ground that were problematic. And like it's not just we want the vibes, because like the end goal is you partner with the leadership. The leadership preaches to the congregation. They're tracking. A lot of these places are actually tracking how their congregations vote, and really pushing them to vote for congregations that support a number of right-wing causes, one of which was this kind of systematic support for unequivocal support for the Israeli government, which they viewed as a commandment from God, and that they, at the end of the day, even if it wasn't explicitly said when we were there doing the events with them, but it was, oh, like we need as many Jews to move to Israel as possible because we want the Armageddon to happen. We're really rooting for the rapture and the end times
Rapture.
and
Yep.
Jesus to come back. And so that's really what underpins a lot of this. And that is the lens that the foreign policy of this country is being distorted through at the highest levels. Goes, I mean, our current ambassador to Israel, Mike Huckabee, who I've met at an event with Michael Evans, uh, he is a former pastor. He's very explicit that his whole support for Israel is largely predicated on this theology project as he sees it. I mean, they're not hiding it, and
What?
I'm not being hyperbolic at
No,
all
of
when I
course
say it.
not.
Like
No. No, no,
this
no,
is
of course
what
not.
we do.
Yeah, it's rapture theology, it's Armageddon, which, by the way, this is not most Christians. This is this particular strain of Christianity that's in the dispensationalist kind of
Yeah, the
theology.
premillennial dispensationism. It might not be. I think it's more popular than a lot of people would want to recognize, but it is pretty powerful, and it occupies a lot of the highest echelons of this government.
Yes, and I've talked to pastors about this, and while all of the most ardent Christian Zionists are all dispensationalist, are in the dispensationalist theology. There are a lot of dispensationalists who, they like Israel, but they're more concerned with like the rapture here, and they're not necessarily messianic and all that. So there's always diversity
Yeah,
everywhere you look. But
yeah, that's
what
fair.
what's the psychology of the people who are believe in the rapture and they're like trying to do the Armageddon type stuff? Like, I mean, you worked with people, you met these people. Were they like, oh, the world's gonna end soon anyway, so we're just hopping down? Like, was it weird? Was
Oh
it,
yeah,
or
it was extremely weird.
what's
I mean,
what's some of the weird, I don't know, just vibes they put out? Like, what were things they did or said?
like, so there's groups, like I would just follow like broad trends in Christianity. So I was subscribing to like Christianity Today and also End Times Ministries, and I would just read their little newsletters but like regularly stuff about we're close to the world ending. Like, uh, John Hagee, he wrote a whole book saying like that the world was going to end in this Battle of Gog and Magog in like 2014, and then it just didn't happen, and we just carry on. Uh,
Jeez.
and like yeah, so that was a lot of like my deconversion. Like I would not have happened absent being in this world where I was like just hearing these wild things. Like I had like Doug Stringer. He's on the board of Promise Keepers. He was someone I worked closely with. And like he came to the consulate and said, we view it as a commandment of God to have unequivocal support for Israel. And when they say Israel, they don't just mean like some vague idea about Jewish people or the people who live there, but it's manifested in their thoughts like the Israeli government. That is what they mean. And like there was other groups like Root Source, and they work between Orthodox Jews and these fundamentalist Christians, and they'll even say it right up front, where they're like, whether you think he's coming for the first time or the second time, we know he's going to come in Jerusalem, and so we need to be stick together and be there now. And like so, and like your paycheck's kind of connected to this. You know that you're gonna have to like talk to your bosses on your performance review and be like, here's the events we did, like here's like, so you kind of just have to like nod along. And I would like, so when I was still a Christian, I would get in my car and I would like pray for forgiveness for doing this and that, and then eventually I was just like, this is all nuts. Like I cannot continue to just believe in this thing. And then it really was just like wool getting pulled over your eyes, and you're like, oh my gosh, like the power of belief that has, and like it can be weaponized. And like usually we talk about separation of church and state in this country, and we talk about it, we're talking mostly about prayer in public school or on stuff written on money or the pledge, and like yeah, I think those are important debates to have, but so little of the discussion is ever separation of like faith and foreign policy. And
Hmm.
I think I'm kind of uniquely positioned to shine a bright light on this and do it from this angle where I don't think Christianity or religion in general is a net positive force in the world. And I think a lot of people, when they critique this, it's it's so apparent that it's very important for them to do this coming from a place of I'm here to defend Christianity from this corruption of it. And I do want to push back on that because I think that there's more attention focused on that than that it's a problem in general. And if I'm sorry if this faith can be so easily hijacked for these types of uh, political projects, especially increasingly violent or even genocidal ones, I think that that says something about this ideology.
Yes, definitely. Well, I certainly am in the camp of Christian Zionism and the secular government of Israel as the Israel that is referred to in the Bible. I think that's ridiculous. I think, how much do you know about like the Schofield Bible and the degree to which Israel basically planted the seeds of dispensationalist theology?
Yeah, I mean, I've heard some of that. I'm a little. I would need to like review, like brush up on it.
Sure. Okay.
But like, and I guess that also like says something like how easy it was for me. Like, I didn't go to a Bible college. I don't have a theology degree. I was just able to like memorize a few little verses that I would throw out, and people would just eat it up because it was what they wanted to hear.
Yeah. Um, what kind of pushback have you gotten, or has anyone like I'm assuming people know that you're out here spilling the beans.
Yeah. So I mean, I think so. Oh yeah, Gilad actually reached out to me on LinkedIn because he wanted to see it. And I was surprised he wasn't like didn't come off as more outraged, but he was like, I want to go on his podcast and tell my side of the story. And I was like, all right, man, like I'll put you in touch. But
That's
like,
funny.
no, dude, that guy is crazy. Like I'll send you a clip of him, like because he went on I think it was Flashpoint on Kenneth Copeland's network. And my goodness, like.
Bro, I'll have him on. Oh, that would be great. Maybe I'll host a debate between him and some non-dispensationalist. That might be fun.
Okay, yeah, yeah. I mean, he'll probably take you up on that, dude. He's a very wheels off person. Like I remember, yeah, there was one time during like one of these, not during the war, but during the kind of skirmish. I think it was during the Great March of Return when he had me bring all these pastors into like a briefing that he was going to give, like a virtual one. Uh, there was like dozens of them, maybe like on there about why they needed to support Israel and all this. And I just remember like he went real off script. Like he told us beforehand, I'm not just gonna say the ministry's talking points. I'm gonna go like he used the phrase, I'm going rogue here. And like so without even consulting with me or telling me that he was gonna do this, he links in his son, who is currently serving in the IDF, who's in a barracks over there, to come do like I don't know if it was some kind of Hanukkah ritual. It was around some holiday, but had this candle and out and everything. And I was just like, what are we? This is so bizarre that I'm involved in this. And I've been trying to get like another job for the longest time. And I just didn't understand like, oh, yeah, taking this job probably meant that it was going to be a lot more difficult for me to get hired in the kind of place that I would really want to. Um, but yeah, like, and I've talked to some people who I used to work with who I, was sympathetic towards and who I think like I which at the one person who was herself an atheist, I knew the whole time like she thought what I was doing was nuts. And I wanted so badly the entire time I was working to be like, I agree with you, dude. This is crazy. Like, we should not be doing this. And so I was like finally able to just I send her this thing, be like, yeah, just this is how I actually felt the whole time. And so we had a good laugh over that because I was just curious too. I was like, did you ever suspect that I wasn't like that I was just faking all this whole time? And yeah, so
And
but
what'd she
I
say?
haven't got she was like, no, no. Like, I mean, I thought you were a nice person. I thought it was weird that you would like believe a lot of this, but I never actually suspected that you didn't think so at all. Like, and because I mean, when I was a Christian, I was like a coexist sticker became a person pretty much, and like I'm not that way anymore. I'm like probably one of the few people who actually became a little more moderate after becoming an atheist, but. So
Interesting.
it's been a wild thing. I mean, I'm still in the middle of it, so
Sure.
uh we'll see what else happens. But
So you don't believe in the rapture anymore?
yeah. And I mean, I was never a big rapture revelation type Christian, anyways. But
That's fair.
yeah, I mean, if you want to get all that stuff, because I know you kind of have a view of atheism as being a kind of cringe thing, and I think I've heard you on some of your previous like discussions with atheists, like you've been quick to point out atrocities under like state atheist communist regimes. I actually think that's a pretty fair and valid move. And I think a lot of people on my camp are too quick to kind of dismiss, equivocate, or ignore that. And I think that's a really weak position.
Sure. So are you like I would say an atheist advocate now? Like, is that sort of your?
I'd like to be.
That's
I
fair.
mean, yeah, I mean that's kind of what I'm doing with this, or what I want to do is sort of say, hey, I'm uniquely positioned to offer this kind of criticism of this specific thing of Christian Zionism, but also I think religion and its intrusion into politics more broadly. Um, but it's both a kind of confession and an accusation and sort of a warning of, hey, this can really be easily used to weaponize
Sure.
against you. Like as soon as someone tells me, like it almost became muscle memory where I was like, if I found out someone's a Christian, I would automatically start thinking, here's what I could do to get you to do
Mm-hmm.
this, and like
Mm-hmm.
just involuntarily, and like that's a messed up place to be. Um, so yeah, and I do think like I was saying, I think some people are really quick to dismiss atheism's sort of involvement in uh, like communist regimes. I will say this though, so just kind of thinking out loud here if you want to, but like, so I don't think you can really make the logical leap from there is no God, therefore we need to collectivize agriculture and the state needs to seize control of production. So I don't think there's blood on atheism's hands from like the Great Leap
Sure.
Forward.
Sure. Yeah, I see
However,
what you're saying.
I I do think with the Cultural Revolution, that's 1.5 million people, and I do think it's at least partially responsible for that. It's or persecution of
It's,
Buddhists and Muslims in China, and
oh,
the
I see.
I think it's something like 800 priests, Russian Orthodox priests, murdered by the literally called the League of Militant Anti-Theists or Anti-Religious and the USSR. So like I'll recognize that, and I think that needs to
Well,
be
yeah.
unequivocally condemned. That's fair.
Sure. Sure. Sure.
However,
So,
I
well,
still think if we add up this ledger, it is
yeah. Yeah.
going to
Yeah.
be the blood on atheist hands will be dwarfed by Christianity's.
Let's step back. Let's step back. Let's step back. Brandt, are you familiar with a man named Jordan B. Peterson?
Oh yeah, yeah. I know how you feel about him.
I feel many types of way about Jordan B. Peterson. I mean, my whole defense of religion is it's an inevitability. It's built into our psychology, and you can't really. No one can be irreligious because everyone has to have a highest value. I think the way that Peterson puts it is correct. I think it's just how it plays out in reality. I've had a bunch of people recommend me David Foster Wallace. He wrote some essay that
Yeah,
basically
I'm familiar.
says, yeah, where he says basically everyone has a God. So my defense of religion is that it's sort of innate, and the nature, like the form that it takes, might be Christianity, might be a particular sect, dispensationalism, the Islam, whatever. And that's my perspective on it. The atheism, my problem with atheism, which has gotten less and less, ironically, as I've become more and more Christian. Um, I'm going to Bible study after this, by the way. Um, so, my problem with atheism is just basically you have to ground, in order to have any moral system, you got to ground some basic principles that are just, I believe this on faith and I will not question it. And you can't do that with atheism. And also, there's actually no such thing as an atheist who isn't already saturated in Christian programming or whatever religious programming they came from. Because there's never been an atheist society that naturally evolved. So every society comes from a religious society. And all the
You know, I
language
see
you
what you said.
use.
Atheism will look different in a
Yeah, yeah.
something
So I just don't like that. When I think of
Christian
atheists, are just like, yeah,
context.
yeah, yeah. We can be moral without believing in God and all that. And it's like, no, you're only moral because the whole culture you're in is Christian, and like
Yes,
well, we should treat everyone equally.
this is where I sharply disagree with you.
All right,
So,
why?
well, it's hard to know where to start there. So yeah, I would say. like I would say pretty much anything that we would label like a moral advancement in our society in the West or like any Christian society has been largely resisted by the church, including in slavery. And I mean, that's just
Sure.
one example I can give you, and that not only has been resisted by the church, but is explicitly endorsed by its so-called holy book in multiple places, not never condemned by Jesus himself. In fact, he says, says go back to your masters, specific instructions on who you're allowed to enslave, for how long, how you're allowed to treat them, that their ears need to be pierced like cattle. And
Jesus said that, or
as
is that
I,
Old Testament stuff?
well, I mean, Jesus says slaves go back to your masters.
That's the only line where he talks about slavery, right?
Well, it doesn't that
I
say
don't know. I'm
something?
not. No, I know.
Like anyone,
Look,
like
we
I
can.
don't, I'm not gonna sit here and go, okay, yeah, I mean, even still, like, are they the same God or not? First of all, B, like, virtually any single person could easily improve upon this book, or just the Ten Commandments. Let's just take those in a snap of a finger. Like, we could just get rid of one of the first two, or two of a couple of the first ones that pertain to God's vanity, and just add, "Thou shalt not own people as property. Thou shalt not lie with another without their consent." Like, or the honor of your father and mother. It's not. It doesn't just say that just to do it. It's so that you'll be blessed with long life. We could add an addendum to that to just say, and care for the littlest among you.
Yeah.
Dude, we already doesn't
Would have,
it
could
make
have, should
you?
have. If onlys and buts were candies and nuts, then every day would be Unterschrockenweichen, or whatever Dwight Schrute
Yeah,
says.
yeah. Earned to Dirt Fest, I think. But
Unterdrückfest. Yeah, yeah. It's just it, but it. I get. Yeah, of course. Like you were saying, it's a matter of
it's just
historical
a vague
reality.
appeal that we make that, oh, I'm moral because of the system. And I think, well, this religion is only 2,000 years old in the first place. Um,
The
there's a completely different moral conversation going on, and a lot of, like you mentioned, like atheism. Yeah, atheism's gonna look different in India, and like in Hinduism, there's a whole caste system. It's very disturbing and messed up. Um, Yeah, I don't think morality needs to be grounded in anything. I think morality is a live wire. Like I guess if I had to peg myself down, I'm more of like an immoral motivist. Like I kind of vibe with a lot of what Alex O'Connor said of this. I think
Me
you've
too.
talked to him.
Well, Alex O'Connor's going to become Christian in 20 years, so he's on the Jordan
You
Peterson
think?
path. There's a good meme that hasn't been made yet, but I'll make, I suppose, where it's like the animated one where it's like a guy and he's standing at a crossroads and there's like a bright castle or like a dark castle on either side. You know what I'm talking about? That meme format.
I haven't seen it, but go
You
on.
get the idea. It's a guy standing at a
Mhm.
crossroads, and there's one like dark castle that's super spooky, and then a nice one. And the meme will be YouTube atheist ends up down of one of two paths. You end up like Alex O'Connor, which is the bright castle, who's going to become Jordan Peterson in 20 years, just echoing everything he's saying. Or you become the genetically modified skeptic and rationality rules. Women aren't really a real thing. It's ridiculous to say that women have penis, or how is it? A penis. There's one line I can't remember it, but I cited
I
in a
know.
video a while ago
I
where it
think
was
I know
so
what you're talking
ridiculous.
about.
But
Yeah,
anyway,
I've
anyway.
called on your video. I mean,
That's the
it
conclusion of
is a
atheism,
difficult.
the disillusion of categories. If you don't ground it in something, then I don't know. You get transhumanism and all this shit. It's like, well, why don't we allow people to live forever? How about fuck that? How about no? We just say no. Every human that's ever lived has died. The probability that you fucking with this is, that's just gonna. No, I don't think we should do it.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know anything about transhumanism. That's pretty above my head, or
Just a
I'm not a
logical extension of
scientist. Person.
your religion of atheism.
Here's what I would say. Like, there's a increasing part of me that, based on like a lot of the experiences I've had, things I've seen, like I I do kind of feel like maybe as a species we are doomed to just fight each other and slaughter each other. I just think at the very least, can we just do it over resources and land and be honest about it, and not incorporate magical bullshit into it? Because
Man
remote mode,
does.
dude, it adds insult to injury. And I'm sorry, it makes these, it like it makes these wars, it makes it psychologically, like if you look at Islam, like thinking you're going to be blessed in some promised land in the highest circle of heaven with Muhammad, if you just it will allow a belief system where people will be more inclined to not surrender when there's no way they can win. And if we're sitting here going, well, it makes me feel good or it gives me meaning, then I think, I'm sorry, like meaning at that point becomes overrated. Like it's faith is useful in the same way that like anesthesia is because it numbs but you by disconnecting you from reality. And like I don't see nihilism as something to be feared of. I think it's like an honest thing. I fear delusion and fantasy.
I mean, I hear you. These are powerful critiques. Look, do you believe we should treat people as we want to be treated?
Sure.
That's very Christian of you.
More often than not, or is it very Confucian of me?
Um, did Confucianism have any religious inspiration to it at all?
As I understand it, he did say something very similar to the Golden Rule, maybe even phrased a little better. It's a lot
That's
of
fair.
honoring tradition. I'm
I
not,
know
I wouldn't
Mao
say
was
that.
not a fan of Confucius. I know that.
No, Mao was a huge fan of Han Fei, I think, who was pretty awful during the Hundred Schools of Thought period in China.
That's fair. I'm not super familiar. I guess. Look, I get. Look, I'm at the point where like apologetics is so pointless. Like, what? This is so. When I hear like Christians trying to logic me into God being real, it's just like, dude, zip it. Um, if here's my thesis. If God is real, he will make himself manifest not in online political debate, but in day to day life, in the reality of experience. And so I've become less and less. I mean, I like hearing the perspectives on religion, but it's not something you can debate or argue so much. Like if I'm right, which is, well, we're all grounded in this Christian religion, not Christian, but religious milieu, and the atheism emerges out of that. Well, it just ends up. The only other way to talk about it is just go, presuppositionalism, which, if you've watched my stuff, then I fucking
Yeah,
can't
yeah,
stand any of that shit. So, I don't know. Well, this has been absolutely fascinating. I mean, we have a few minutes here on the wrap up. Is there what do you want to? You've watched my stuff. Is there anything I'm doing wrong, or that I'm, aside from religion and fighting for cultural
yeah. Besides
Christianity?
that, I mean, I don't know. You're very interesting. I think a lot of people in the YouTube space either they get really concerned about who they're talking to. Oh, am I going to be like have some kind of moral stain on me by talking to this person or that person? And you kind of just
No, I don't give a
go
shit.
with it and let the saw what it may. I'm inclined to respect that. I think it can get a little annoying when someone's constantly using the platform as a verb. Uh,
Yes, I
if
agree.
I could give you one piece of advice, I would
Please.
really like it if you could crank out these champion spotlight
Oh,
videos a lot faster because they're I watch them so much. I've shown them to so many people, and every time I show them people, they're like, "Oh, this is hilarious."
that's funny. Anytime I stream and I ask people how they found my channel, like 80% of the time it's the champion spotlights. Um, I may have done the last one I'll ever do with the Hassan Piker one.
Really?
Yeah, because they are the most like intensive. You understand from an editing perspective, these are
Yeah, that makes
incredibly.
sense.
So I have a video editor, Sean, who he's done basically the last two. I write them and kind of give the creative direction, but he's actually doing the actual down and dirty editing. Um, and he helped. We were like 50-50 on the couple before that. Um, I just can't afford to pay him anymore. So
Yeah,
I mean, even like if I make a champion spotlight and it gets 100,000 views, I think that ends up being like $200 or something like that. And if I pay,
really.
and
Okay.
those can take like upwards of 40 to 50 hours to edit.
Yeah,
So
then
for a
less
financial
than my
move,
pay.
yeah, they're just not feasible. Plus, also all the good ones that I want to do, like Nick Fuentes, I would totally do a Nick Fuentes one. I would just immediately get fucking flagged off YouTube. So the risk is not worth it. Um, so, but I
But
appreciate it
yeah,
at
my only
least.
other criticism would like so, and maybe this is too crude of a way to put it.
No,
So is your position that like you think we should just kind of play pretend with Christianity, and you think it's beneficial for society in some kind of abstract way? So, or is it that you just think we are in that system, whether we like it or not? Like,
I think.
my,
Have you taken psychedelics before?
mm-mm.
Okay. Well, maybe this might get you out of this cringe atheism phase you're in. I say condescendingly. Um, I think that there is an order to the universe, that a logos, an intelligibility, and I do think there are higher forces at work. What those are, I can't tell you. I don't know. Fucking aliens I don't know how mainstream, like Bill Maher had a guy on who's just, we're talking about aliens of like, so what do they want? It's like, wait a minute, we're at the point now where we all just agree that aliens are real. Like, I kind of missed that. I was focused on fucking Israel and all this shit for maybe too long. So it's like, what is going on? I don't understand anything. There are higher forces at work. I kind of believe the panspermia hypothesis, where, which is DNA is alien in origin, and what probably happened is some alien species of which were genetically related plants like DNA in meteors and then
It's
fires the
like
meteors at planets.
it's like Prometheus, that movie.
Um, I don't know, but I know the Prometheus myth, so maybe it sounds like it. But like, there's seeding planets. I could see that, and now, so like, so there's some level of connection between us and them somehow. So look. There's a lot I don't know. There's a lot of higher powers. I believe in the higher powers. I believe Christian morale. I believe, generally speaking, Christian morality is the proper morality to follow. Not always, or or rather, true Christian morality, doesn't throw gay people off rooftops, for example. So
Well,
I'm Christian
I think in
adjacent.
Leviticus you're supposed to stone them, but
Old Testament, Old Testament. That's why I'm a Christian. That's why I don't say Judeo-Christian. I say Christian. But yeah, I don't. I believe there's some stuff. There's some forces at work, and the Christian mythology is descriptive of these. I mean, I don't mean mythology isn't fake. I mean mythology is like all of the cultural binding agents. So it's not fake. I can't say it's fake. I'm Christian. Listen. I'm going to Bible study after this. I act like a Christian. I act as if God exists. Okay, I don't know if you've ever
really.
heard.
No, I'm familiar. I mean, I haven't actually read his books. I probably should. I'm an embarrassingly slow reader and trying to slog through a few things right now. Uh,
That's fair. Has most of your Jordan Peterson exposure come through me?
a great deal of it. Yeah, I was I kind of like there was I think I watched before I found your channel. I did watch his debate with Dillahunty, and I just thought he
Oh
got
yeah, he got smacked in
destroyed.
that debate with
And
Dillahunty.
then I can't believe, did you see his Jubilee gangbang? Like that was even worse. Oh my
That's
goodness.
one way to say it. Yeah. What's
Yeah.
funny about the Dillahunty debate? I watched it the first time and I was like, oh, Peterson just got absolutely schmacked. And then I did what every wise, intelligent person does when they're trying to, review and sit with a text. Text being any medium, video or otherwise. And I smoked weed and then rewatched it. And I was like, oh, Peterson lost this optically. He didn't actually lose on any of the substance because Dillahunty didn't address any of his points
But I don't know, man. He's at one point said you can't quit smoking
without a
without
mystical experience. No, he didn't say
I quit
exactly that.
smoking.
He didn't exactly say that. He said it's very hard to. He was, he does exaggerate and uses language weird. And also,
Yeah, that's
he's bitter. He was a
putting
bitter.
it lightly, man.
Sure, that's
I
fair.
don't know.
He's eccentric, no doubt. He's bitter
He
and
also
old.
like sorry, he goes
Yeah.
down like there's sometimes when he'll talk about evolutionary psychology, and I think it's interesting, and I think he has some things to say about that. But then he'll dive into the culture war stuff, and even worse, he'll try to combine that just with international politics. And I'm sorry, Vladimir Putin did not invade Ukraine because of woke.
Because
Like it just sounds it
well, I
sounds
can't rule
silly,
it
man.
out.
And
I can't rule it out.
he's gotten weirder and weirder and
I agree.
weirder.
Listen, post Daily Wire Jordan Peterson is no good. Okay, but pre Daily Wire OG 2017 Maps of Meaning Jordan Peterson. There's some good stuff there. Okay. And by the way, in the worst part of that Matt Dillahunty debate was when he was like, "Are you sure you want to go there?" And Matt's like, "I'm not afraid to go anywhere." And Peterson's like, "Okay." And it was like, "What are you doing, you weirdo? You just look like an
Yeah.
idiot."
Yeah,
So
I don't think he's the most talented debater in general.
no. But you know what? Some would say the same about me, and yet I feel like I'm actually having more productive discourse than almost everyone else who is a good debater, quote unquote. But
Yeah,
anyway,
that's fair.
we'll wrap it up here. I appreciate you sharing this
Yeah, man,
information.
it was a lot of fun. I always willing to chat. So.